Okay, great. And I'm going to move to my chair, taking the microphone along so you can hear me. Hopefully sound is good. I checked all the levels and it should be. And we're going to start on our chairs. And we're going to start sitting, which is the position that we're mostly working from in this class. And for sure, this is the position we come back to when we engage in movement that change position, but that's kind of the check-in, come back, that's the home base. And the home base, this neutral position, comes with sitting right at the edge of the chair so that your sit bones are really, really close to tipping over the edge of the chair, which give you a little freedom of movement here, a little tilting of the hips forward and back, and finding your spot right in between. And that frees the low back to find its natural curve, its natural wave. Because most of the time when we're sitting, we're like this. We're collapsing the lungs because the shoulders come forward, and who can breathe fully here? Then the chin has a tendency to come forward like that, and we start feeling neck pain, back pain. This is a very unnatural position to be in. Human beings are not supposed to sit like that. So we're trying to reclaim our natural posture here. We're rolling the hips forward gently so the sit bones are pressing down, but the tailbone is tilting slightly back, and that gives you the same kind of curve that you have when you're standing. When we're standing, we all have slightly different curves here. Some people have it more pronounced than others, but for sure, this is not what we were born with. So we're trying to go back to that natural curve that can totally be available when we're sitting. Then you bring the feet hip distance apart so that you're aligning not only the feet, but the knees also to hip distance apart. All this is parallel to hip distance apart, all the way to the feet. To be able to bring all this parallel, we make sure that the toes are not out, because here, see, my parallel is lost. I'm on the side. Neither you bring your toes in, because here again, this would be my parallel from here, and my knees are off. So we make sure, and literally you look down to your feet, and you make sure that your feet are in the same position that mine are. The only difference is that your hips might be slightly different than mine. They might be larger or more narrow. And so maybe you can even use your hands to find the tip of your hips and really have this positioning of the hips, because the hips are not out here. Sometimes, especially women, we have the tendency to to see bigger than it is, right? And so I'll see a lot of usually women. Men have the tendency to go further in, but women have the tendency to go further out because they think their hips are right here. That would be the outer butt cheeks. So you want to go straight into the hip bone. This is the alignment, because we're aligning bone to bone. Bone of the hips, bone in the knees and the knee joint, and bone of the ankles down to the metatarsals. And from here, we just rest. Oh, last thing, but not the least, you don't want to have your feet too far forward, neither too far in. And I'm going to open one leg out so you can see. You want to have the shin bone here, perpendicular, 90-degree angle with the floor. Here, you're off, and here, you're off. And if you try for yourself, you'll see and feel the difference between the foot in this position versus far out, where there's more weight toward the heel, or versus far in, where the weight shifts to the ball of the foot. You want even weight, all distributed throughout the feet. That's the best support that the feet can give to the rest of the body. Hands are resting on the lap, and we gently close the eyes. And I'm not going to talk as much right here, because I want you to connect to your breath and feel how your breath is doing, flowing, going, entering, and living. And as you connect to this precious breath that connects us from the moment that we're born to the moment that we give our last breath in this world. It's a thread of continuing breath. Then we tap into this breath to connect with our bodies. And already just paying attention to the breath starts opening a new space in you. A space that hopefully is a little bit more relaxed, a little more at ease, and you allow yourself to settle here. You allow yourself to feel heavy, and not heavy as, oh my God, I cannot get up, but heavy as bringing the full weight into the play with gravity. So you find stability on your chair, with the weight of the torso and the head dropping onto your sit bones, and stability through your feet that feel the weight of the legs, and a transfer also from the torso into the legs, down into the feet, so that you feel fully supported and very stable. And that's key for any kind of movement. If you want fluidity and ease in movement, you need to be anchored first. You need to be stable. And it seems like by default, like obvious that we're sitting on a chair and we're stable, but it is not that obvious. You have to make that connection to fully trust. Most of the time we're sitting and holding a lot of tension in so many places. So relax into whatever tensions you might start noticing as you tap into your body and how your body feels. Tensions might be a consequence of ache and pain, and you're tensing up around. But tension can also simply be a consequence of stress, of emotions that are bothering you, like anxiety and fear and sometimes anger. All this kind of emotions have a physical presence, have a physical manifestation that usually implies tensing up muscles. So try to relax a little deeper, taking the last couple breaths here to settle in and prepare the body for movement, for mindful movement, where throughout the class you're trying to keep your attention to both the breath and the body, and leave the brain into the closet for the next hours so that you can take it back afterwards to have all those worries and all those thinking about what you need to do, how you need to do, or remembering things. That's available for you after class. But for now, really dive into what the body wants to tell you, and therefore how you're addressing things for your body. And then let's open the eyes and keep the eyes nice and soft. So you're not over forcing, like stretching your eyes, looking all around. Try to keep throughout the class also a nice soft gaze that is not hyperactive. And we're going to start a little waving of the spine from side to side. And the waving, know that probably most of you know that waves are not exactly the same from one wave to the other wave when you're watching the ocean or you're watching over a lake when it's a windy day. You'll be able to notice that no two waves are the same shape, the same intensity. They don't trace the same pattern on the sand or the shore. And therefore, the waving of your spine shouldn't dictate equal wave from side to side, neither same wave from one round to the other round. So find that ease of movement as you connect to the spine without expectations of doing something properly and ideally and exactly perfect on each side. And along with this movement, as your head is ready and your neck start releasing a little bit of that apprehension about that tension of holding everything together, then you're allowing your head to follow the waving of the spine, because ultimately the head is attached to the end of the spine, the upper end. And you're giving your full spine movement, even though it's not dramatic movement, it's not major range of motion, but you're warming up from the low back to the neck. Next time that you're tilting out to the right side, stay here, and now we're gonna release the right arm down to the side and take a few rolls here. So you're rotating, circling your heavy hand and fingers and feeling the weight of the arm all the way to the shoulder. And then we bring the right hand back into the leg. You press gently from the right hand onto the leg to lift up, to tilt out to the left. And then drop your left arm and tiny circles along the left arm, down to the left hand. And see, I'm not going too far to the side. I'm not struggling here. If you go far down, you're going to feel the pull here, and that's not what we're aiming to. Ground your sit bones and relax like a rag doll. And bring your left hand back to your leg, pressing gently against the left leg to lift up. Hands slide a little further forward, not all the way to the top of the knees, but to give a little more room. And I don't know how many of you have cats, but you know that cats, a lot of them do this with their paws. And that's what we're gonna do. So you're gonna press one hand at a time, and that's gonna make your shoulders slightly twist from side to side. That's also if you're a baker and you like making bread, for example, that would be the knotting, the pressing down on the dough. And you're pressing into the legs with the hands, and that gives a little motion into the shoulders. And then you allow the head to follow, gently twisting your head from side to side. Feel the action of this movement, not only in the front part of the body and obviously in the shoulders and head, but feel it also in the back, along the spine. Couple more. And back to center, start rolling the shoulders. Forward, up, back and down with soft bend in the elbows. Relax hands and fingers. And reverse, roll the shoulders the opposite way. And breathe. I cannot repeat it enough. Like if I was to repeat breathe every single second of this class, I'm sure I would still lose people forgetting to breathe. So make sure that when you're doing all this, you're fully breathing. You're moving just to enhance the experience of your breath. Couple more. And relax. Left hand on top of the left knee, right arm to the side, and we're going to swing the arm forward and back. If you have a different kind of chair than mine that has arms, then you're going to have to adapt and swing the arm a little further out. But even when you're here, make sure that you relax your hand fully, relax your fingers, and there's a soft bend in the elbow, just not because you're thinking, oh, I'm bending my elbow, because the movement is making you bend the elbow. Take a few more here. Nice broad swings if that's available. And slow down, make the pendulum a little more narrow, to more narrow. And to relax back onto the right leg. Slide your right hand out. Release the left arm to the side, and again, either close in or a little broader out to the side. Swing the arm, nice and loose into the shoulder joint. And breathe. And a couple more. Start slowing down and going a little smaller here. To smaller. Left hand back to the knee. Hands stay on top of the knees, both of them. And we're going to start rocking the hips forward and back. And as you rock the pelvis and hips forward and back, you notice the effect on your spine from arching as you come forward to rounding as you go back. And now you have plenty of time, plenty of opportunities to fill up the breath, inhaling as you rock forward, exhaling as you're rounding back. Full breath in, long breath out. On the breath out, what is naturally occurring that you can enhance a little bit more is a squeezing of the belly in. Imagine that your belly is like a sponge, and that sponge goes all the way into the lungs. And so when you're squeezing the belly in, you're squeezing the breath out of the lungs. And when you relax the belly forward and you expand into the arching of the back, your sponge opens and gets swollen again by new fresh air. Now do the 2 or 3 next rounds, going slower, honoring your breath, that hopefully you're able to synchronize deep breath with the movement of the body. So here I'm going to the very max, the very top of the inhale as I'm arching. And then when I'm full of breath, I start slowly exhaling and rolling back and rounding to the very last squeeze of the belly and breath. And one more inhale. Lengthen and expand the spine in the breath in. And exhale, round in, spread the shoulder blades apart, relax your head down. Squeeze the breath out. And come back to neutral. Hands go back to about halfway on the lap. And we're going to use the movement of the arms to get some rotation around the spine. We're going to reach out with the right arm, open out to the right, and circle up and across. Reach out, open out, circle up and across. So at first, the movement might be narrow here, right? But as you get more range of motion, you're almost aiming to a full circle all around the body that you're tracing through your fingers. And you're breathing, you're stirring in the breath. Here I'm using actively my feet. My feet and my legs are bringing softness and ease into my spine and the movement of my arm. So try to aim to find a spot that is similar to mine, where the action is coming more from active legs and feet than tensing up your arm, for example. My arm is pretty soft and easy here. You can go slower and therefore be more mindful about the full range of motion. 2 more. Follow and gaze at your fingers. And release back to center, back to neutral. Take a moment here to have appreciation for any kind of different sensations you might experience. Maybe the right side of the body feels a little bit or drastically different from the left side. And not to judge it, just have a smile on your face and a little sense of surprise and curiosity and joy for having the opportunity to catch how different it might feel from one side to the other side. And let's go to the other side. We're going to use the left arm, reaching out to the right, opening out, stretching across. So I'm deconstructing the movement first so that you can get a sense for how you take the space around into the movement of your torso, and you start warming up your spine, also warming up how your legs are supporting the movement. And once you find it, then remember that you're aiming to almost create a full circle parallel to the floor with the tip of your fingers and your hand. And it can be a tiny circle here if you're really aching this morning. It can be a little broader. Or it can be way broader out if you're feeling good and everything is flowing with ease. And again, my feet are really a big active component of this movement. I'm pressing down in my feet, my legs are engaged so that my torso is nice and fluid. Nice and fluid because it feels completely safe and supported by the anchor of the legs. Breathe. And then slow down and be even more mindful. Really feel the texture of the air around. Follow, gazing at your fingers. Feel the expansion and depth of your breath in the movement. 1 or 2 more. And release. Coming back to neutral, and now feel and notice the sensations on the left side. Feel if it calibrated out with the right side, or if you still feel that you have 2 bodies instead of 1. And that's still cool. You can have double body today instead of 1. Good. And here with feeling the weight on your feet, but also rerouting onto the sit bones so that it's spread a little more evenly between the feet, because the tendency can be sometimes to lean a little too far forward. Most of the time it's not. Most of the time it's leaning back. But feel the connection to the feet, feel the connection to the chair, and then see if you can start lifting and rolling your heels and ankles. And here paying attention to pressing down into the ball of the feet. So when I'm rolling my knees in and up, I feel that I'm leaning the weight towards the ball of the big toes. And then as I'm starting opening the knees out, the weight is spreading throughout the ball of the feet towards the little toe, and then rolling back down and coming back to neutral, and then roll up, out, and down. And at first it might be very narrow here and kind of a shy movement, especially if you have some arthritis, some ache and pain into the ankles and the toes. But as you get a little more warmed up, then you have maybe a little wider range of motion or a lot wider range of motion. So don't be shy, don't hold yourself back, especially if everything feels good. Really challenge yourself to go as wide in the range of motion of your ankles, keeping the ball of the feet at all times on the ground. And once you find that ease and comfort in the rotation that starts from the ball of the feet into the ankles, start feeling and noticing the sensation in your knees and in your hips, because we're actually rolling the upper leg bone into the hip socket in circles too. The action of the movement is not limited to the feet. It starts from the feet, that's the intention, but the action goes all the way to the hip. And pause, bring your feet down, and now we're going to try to reverse this movement. And I'm saying trying because you might not have paid attention to how actually you were rotating your ankles. You might have done it the opposite way than what I was doing. And so let's try to find the opposite way. So in my case, I was rotating out, opening out, and now I'm going to roll in. If you feel that when you're doing this rolling in, it feels really easy, feels very familiar, that might mean that that's what you were doing prior. So I invite you to switch and go the opposite direction and see if you're finding that unfamiliar field, unfamiliar sensation, and stick with that one then. Just a matter of going in both directions. So here we're going from pressing to the ball of the little toes across the other 3 toes back to the ball of the big toes when the knee come in. And then again, you spread out, you press through the ball of the little toe across the ball of the foot and the base of all toes to the base of the big toe. And let's move it around. Couple more. And relax and release. Take a pause here. Feel the sensation in your legs, not only in your feet, that is an obvious one, and in your ankles, but to the knees and to the hips. So in my case, a few years ago, I started having a little bit of osteoarthritis in my right hip, which I'm working on and taking supplements and moving and doing all kinds of things. But it does, when on certain movements, I can feel my right hip differently from my left hip. So for example, in the movement we just did, I can notice a little more warmth in my right hip joint versus my left hip joint. So try also in each movement, when you tap into a sensation, not expect the other side of the body to feel the same, and just stay with the sensation that you're experiencing, just acknowledging it's there without trying to shift it, neither judging it. You're like just honoring what your body is experiencing. Okay, you're pressing into the left foot, rounding into the left leg. We're gonna see if we can lift that right leg, and it's the same kind of movement that we were doing, but now this movement starts from the hip joint. You see that my knee is moving, the difference also that my foot is lifting up the floor and I'm not moving my ankle. But in the hip joint, this is the same movement with a little more intensity. So let's go into that movement where the left foot, the left leg are the anchor, and I'm pressing down in it, and I'm gently rolling my right knee up, out, and down. Next time that I'm lifting my right knee up, I'm gonna catch it with the right hand and press it in a bit and out. Keep on pressing on the left foot. Now you feel the belly engaging, and out and in. Now your right arm is also working. If this is too much for you, you can use both hands, and that's an easier movement here. And next time you're in, stay here, stretch up. Take a breath or two here. Then if you can, if this is already challenging for you, stay here with both hands. But if you can, grab the knee, the front of the knee with your right hand, open the right knee out and lift your left arm out to the side. My right foot is completely relaxed. I bring the leg back in. You can catch the knee with both hands, stretch up, inhale. And exhale, release that right foot down. Pause and rest. Notice what shifted, what changed, if anything. And let's go to the other side. Left leg is starting moving, rotating. Doesn't have to go all the way really up and out. That's a great movement if you're able to or want to. But we get all we need from tiny movement, really paying attention to the rotation in the hip, feeling stable and rooted from the sit bone. Feel again the belly engaging. Keep the shoulders on top of the hips. Don't collapse here. Keep the head reaching up and tall. Just a few more here, pressing down into the right foot, engaging the right leg. Here, my right leg is active. My thigh is contracted. And next move, catch the knee, pulling in and out. Again, if you need to, use both hands, pull in and out. When you use just one hand, you need more core work here to be able to do this motion with the movement of the leg and staying still with the torso. But if this is too much, again, this is completely fine and it gives you a little break, but it's still the same movement at the hip. Keep on breathing, deep in, long out. Next time you're forward, see if you can release that right hand and use just the left hand to open the knee out and then open the right arm up to the side. And breathe. Coming back in, bring the leg back in, release it down. Sit tall and give a little rocking of the hips forward and back, because doing this hip movement might have tense up around the hips and the belly. And we're loosening things up and resetting. Back to center. Sit tall, toes in, heels out, heels in, toes in, heels out, heels in. So you're basically pivoting on your heels from opening and closing, still working a little bit with the hips, but also with the legs here. Next time that you're opening your feet out, stay. Now we're gonna pivot from the ball of the feet to roll the heels out, knees in, then roll the toes out and stay. Bring your hands on top of the knees. Make sure you're not leaving your chair here, that you're not losing your connection. And we're gonna give a stretch into the shoulders. Stretch the left shoulder toward the right knee. Make sure you're not closing the knees here. Make sure that you're anchoring and grounding and pressing down into the feet to keep the knees open. And then we come back in and go to the other side. Twist that right shoulder forward and across to the left. Feel the stretch into the back of the shoulder, down through the right side of the spine. Follow where the stretch goes. That's why we're staying for a bit here. Come back in. Exhale again, left shoulder toward the right. Now keep on breathing as you stay in the pose. Press down into the feet and feel the stretch. Inhale back up. Exhale, bring the right shoulder across toward the left. Let your head follow the movement. Knowing that we stay here for a while, no need to look at me like facing the screen. You can allow the head to be nice and loose and look out to the left. And then one more on each side. Left shoulder goes to the right. You're allowing your head to turn over to the right also. You're tilting and rolling your hips forward. You're not keeping the hips tight back. That's going to change and shift the sensation of the stretch. Then come back in. And last one, right shoulder toward the left. And breathe. And come back in. Sit tall, keep the feet where they are. Make sure that the toes are not turned in and the knees out. Neither the toes are further out than the knees and the knees are pulling in. So watch for your foot to be aligning with the knee. So you're seeing that straight line, even though we're not legs to parallel, there's still like a line between the hip, the knee, and the foot. There's not a foot in and foot out, okay? And from here, you're gonna shift your weight a little bit deeper onto the left hand. Release the right arm and right hand right in the middle of that space you created with your legs. And you're gonna imagine that you're pulling something. So you have the action of the hand kind of grabbing a bucket or a weight, a bag, whatever. The sensation of grabbing something, you're pulling it up, you're stretching it up, you open your hand, you release, and you drop. And pull up, stretch up, active arm, and relax. And stretch. And as you're stretching and pulling up, use the legs. If you were to use this movement for a specific purpose in your daily life, because this is also the purpose of this class, if you were in this position and you needed to grab something that dropped or that is between your legs here, instead of relying on just your back and your hand and just your legs doing this, activate the legs first, press down, feel the core muscle. Those muscles, the leg muscles, are a lot bigger than the arm muscles, right? So you're using the action of pressing down from your feet to lift that imaginary weight and then stretch up as you keep on pressing on your feet and release. Inhale, pull up. Exhale. Inhale. Release. Exhale. 2 more. Press up. And release. And last one. Pull up, straight line up, stretch, stretch, stretch. Feel the stretch here as you're lengthening up. And relax and come back to neutral. Shake your hands and arms out before we go to the other side. And let's go for the other side. Right hand now is pushing and pressing heavier onto the right leg, but your left leg is still engaged. And you release your left arm right in that space in between. Imagine you're grabbing something, going slightly forward. You don't have to go forward fold a lot. Just as you grab, press into your legs, lift and extend the arm, stretch up. Open your hand and drop. Inhale, pull up. Press powerfully through the legs. Exhale. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. 3 more. Breathe in, pull and lift. Press into your feet and out. Your right hand also is a lifter here. You're pushing against the leg as you lift. Exhale, and last one. Breathe in and up. Stretch. And exhale. Come back up. Shake your arms and hands out. And relax. Toes in, heels in. Toes in, and find your feet back to parallel. Make sure that the case, look down. Make sure your shin bones are perpendicular to the floor. And breathe. Arms forward. Cross your right arm on top of the left. Try to cross at the elbow level. If you're crossing down here, it's going to be hard to fold in, as we're going to do. And if you go past the elbows, that can be even better in this case, but it's not needed. But the elbow level is kind of your point of reference. And then you bring your hands back and see how far you're able to bring your hands back. If you tight all around, that might be here. You might not have been able to really stack elbow to elbow, and that's what you're reaching. If you're able to stack elbow to elbow, you'll be reaching to the side of the shoulders. If you're able to go a little deeper, you'll be able to grab and walk your fingers to the shoulder blades. And see now, my elbows are way crossed over. So whichever of the 3 positions you're in, you're gonna inhale, lengthen up, and exhale, round in, round your spine, drop your head, and use your arms to pull and stretch. You're pulling in and stretching to behind the shoulders in the space between the shoulder blades. Breathe 2-3 breaths here. And then gently roll up. Open out, uncross, stretch back, soft elbows. I'm not locking my elbows out, soft elbows. And then palms facing forward, spread the fingers and bring the shoulder blades together. Actively squeeze the shoulder blades. And then soften back to neutral, bringing the arms forward. Now this time the left arm crosses on top of the right. Again, try to aim at the elbow level. Look down. Make sure that you're further up than here. If this is all you can do, still try from here and get some degree of a stretch. But you're trying to really aim at least to the elbows. Then bring your arm, you're kind of going into an embrace. You're hugging yourself. And see where your hands land. And from here, maybe you're able to walk your hands a little further back and then trying to aim even if this is possible for you to having a touch with your shoulder blades, that your fingers are literally feeling the inner edges of the shoulder blades. And from here, take a deep inhale with a nice long spine, and as you exhale, start rounding your back and round more specifically into the space between the shoulder blades. Drop your chin down and use your hands to pull those shoulder blades apart and get a deeper stretch in that space in between. And breathe. Use your breath as you expand and broaden the breath in. That's going to add another layer to the stretch out. And as you exhale, you have a softening of that space in that might allow your hands to grab a little better either the side of the shoulders or the shoulder blades, so that in your next inhale, you can use the traction of the hands and the inflating of the breath to go one more layer in the stretch. And then soften back in, lengthen the spine, open the arms out, softly bend the elbows, spread the fingers out, stretch into the palms, and now squeeze the shoulder blades together. Broaden the chest, lift the center of the chest a little higher, hug the back of the shoulders together. And soften back in and release, hands down to the lap. Take a breath or two here. Hands together, clasp the fingers, rotate the palms out and away, and then swing the arms up and press those hands to the ceiling. There's a bend in the wrist. You're trying to aim as long and nice so the arms are as closer as possible to the ears. If again this is not working for you, you can have the elbows bent out, the shoulders down, but keep the action of the hands, trying to really push into the hands up to the ceiling. And then lengthen the torso, lengthen the ribs up, open the space between the ribs, stretch, stretch, press down into the feet, press down into the sit bones, pull the low belly in a little bit, then lift from the low ribs up to the palms. Take one more breath or two here. And then gently soften, 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 soften the hands towards the crown of the head, still palms up. Now we flip the hands down. You release the intertwining of the fingers so your hands are kind of floating apart. And you're going to slowly press your hands through the front of the body, down, very slowly. Then hover like an inch over the legs. Your fingers are pointing forward and you slide your hands without touching your legs to the top of the knees, and then you curve and you slide to the front of the shins and see how far you can go. Maybe that's your max or halfway here. And then you're going to curve your fingers up and forward. Press your palms, lift up to the ceiling. Deep inhale. And then bring your hands back in and lower those palms down. Elbows out to the side. Throughout the front of the body, soft fingers. Keep on breathing nice, deep and long. Now when you reach right above the thigh, you rotate the fingers forward. The elbows come in. And then we slide forward, curve to the front of the knees. You're not touching this, about ½ an inch between your hands and your body. And then you slide down. Curl your fingers forward, lift up, show your palms to the screen, lift up, show your palms and fingers reaching back, and then relax your hands back in, open the elbows out, and last 2 rounds. We're gonna go through the front of the body. Hover right on top of the legs. Rotate the fingers forward, elbows to the side of the rib cage, and then slide out along the thigh. Curl, slide down along the shins. Curl the fingers, wave, show your palms to the screen. Lift up, stretch, breathe in, nice and deep. Soften the hands, fingers towards each other, palms down, lower down, last round. Take your time, breathing nice and deep, going really slow. You're gazing at your fingers. Rotate the fingers and hands forward, tucking the elbows in, slide out and forward. Feel the action of the legs and feet here. Curl to the front of the knees, sliding your hands down. Curl forward and up. Stretch out. Last deep stretch here. Relax your hands. Palms down. Slowly lower. And this time, as we lower down, when we get to the level of the low belly, you're going to bring your hands onto your low belly and give your belly a nice rub. Rolling, pressing in. And then roll the opposite direction. And relax and release. Hands to the left, slide out. Press knees down, feet down. Rock the hips forward, squeeze the belly, squeeze the pelvis, push and lift. We're gonna do our last move standing. Using the chair, we're gonna get into the back stretch. I'm going sideways, but you keep your chair the way it is. Here, hands on top of the chair. You find the right distance, not too far back, not too close in. Just like in my case, I have maybe 1.5 feet between the chair and the edge of my feet. And I'm standing here as we went into our neutral position sitting. There's also by default a universal neutral position as we're standing. And that neutral position is not this one. It's not this one, it's not either feet in and knees in, is not feet out, and which create this. It's none of those. It's bringing your feet the same position they were when we were sitting, feet hip distance apart, so that the feet, the knees, and the hips are in the same alignment. They're not here, which shift the weight very much differently. Neither they're narrow in where you have less surface of support to balance on. Here you have equal weight between your feet and you're able to not only spread the weight, but to ground yourself down a lot easier. Then the arms fall to the side of the body. You can use your chair if you wish, if you don't feel stable enough, but eventually you can play with releasing at least one arm at a time or both. And with the soft bend in the knees, you allow your hips to tilt a little bit forward, but tiny, tiny movement. If I go sideways so you can see it better, see how tiny my movement is. It's not, I'm not like doing this, right? Tiny, tiny, so that there's a fine tuning for you to find the right spot where you're not falling too far onto the ball of the feet, neither you're leaning too far back on your heels. Find that spot right in between. And then from here, you give a little tilt from side to side, tiny bitty also, to feel the equalizing of the weight between the right and the left. Because we also have a tendency to have a predominant side and leaning more onto that side than the other one. Or maybe because we have a little ache in one side of the body and the other one is compensating. So try to claim that same equal weight on both legs. Then with the arms to the side of the body or even to the hands on top of the chair, try to find some softening into the shoulders and make sure that you're not starting doing this, rolling the shoulders forward. Keep the shoulders rolling back and down. And for that action of broadening of the chest and shoulders back, there's also an action of lifting the low ribs and the sternum up. And you feel that activation of the front belly, which in turn relaxes the low back. And you can try it for yourself. If you're sinking into the low ribs in, relaxing the belly, then you feel a pull on your back, even if it's a mild pull. Whereas if you stretch up here, these abs help you soften the low back. And from here, last touch, but not the least, your head should be aligning on top of the shoulders, meaning that the ears should be right on top of the shoulders instead of poking forward, or, which is more rare, but it happens sometimes, especially if we have people with the toes out and the hips forward, then you see my chin is going to come back here and my ears are going to be past the shoulders. So here, again, you want to have the alignment of the feet with the hips. The shoulders are right on top of the hips. The ears are right on top of the shoulders. And that's your neutral spine. That's your neutral alignment. And if you were to do just that every day, that you're checking in with yourself when you're standing and you're getting ready to walk, or you're standing off your bed, you're standing off the chair after having been sitting for a while, check in and see if you can find here where your position is, where your weight is, if you can align your bone structure to make the rest of the body work efficiently together without having to compensate or overdo in one area versus the other area. From here, now we're going to go into our final move, the back stretch. You're going to walk back and find the right distance, that when you're hinging forward from the hips, whether you bend the knees to give freedom to your back or your back of the legs are pretty nice and stretchy. Pretty nice and stretchy means that there's none of this happening. You're not rounding your back. The back of the leg is open enough, long enough to allow the hips to pivot forward and the spine to find its same arching that it has when I'm standing up. And then you relax your head, not all the way down, but you bring it to a relaxed position, still holding up between your arms. So obviously, I'm sure that several of you are poking up to see what I'm doing. And this is a lot of tension of the neck. So I suggest that you push all the way up, you watch me first, and then when you do it, you relax your head between your arms. So you want to find either hands on the chair, or I'm resting right past my wrist on the chair, relax my hands. And then here, I'm looking down, my ears are aligning with my arms, and I'm pulling the sit bones back. And what that does is not only lengthening the space between behind the legs, but it's also lengthening the side body from the armpits to the hips. Pulling those thighs back, even with the knees bent. And I'm finding a lot of space through the front of the torso, the sides of the torso, and obviously the back of the torso. And let's take a few breaths here. If we can hold it here. Deep breath in, long breath out. Pressing your way back up. There's a popping of the shoulders up first, and then hands if you're resting on your wrist. And now you can start walking your way forward. Step away a little bit from the chair, arms to the side, and we're going to kind of sweep the arms from side to side, loosen up. There's a little also movement of the hips here that can be tiny or a little more pronounced. And slow down, find center, and come back to sitting on your chair. I'm going to face you again. Find the neutral position again with your feet hip distance apart, your shin bones perpendicular to the floor, hands rest on the lap. Close your eyes, closing where we started. Full circle, full cycle of movement today. And feel your breath. Feel your body. Feel the floor underneath your feet. And feel your sit bones in connection with the chair. And relax smoother, softer, deeper on your seat. No restrictions, trying to soften any tension that you may become aware of. And get a sense of melting, allowing the outer body, the skin, the muscles to melt, knowing that you're still fully supported by your bone structure. And that melting allows hopefully the shoulders to drop a little lower, a little further away from the ears. Allow a melting around your face, relaxing into your eyes, relaxing into your mouth and your jaw. Relaxing deep into the belly and trying to tap and connect to the breath that arises and relaxes into the belly area. And feel how when you are connected to the belly breath, you start sensing the connection between your belly and your low back. And as simple as this, if you are experiencing some low back pain, this simple breathing exercise of connecting and becoming aware of the belly breath can already has an effect on your low back, allowing the low back to relax and release. The deeper down into the torso you breathe, the more oxygen the body is getting, and the more life force the body is getting. And that's what we all want. That's the source of youth. The breath is a key component. The slower and the deeper you're able to breathe, the more years you'll get to live in better health than those that are not breathing deep. So feel now as you move away from your belly, the breath is still present there, but you're going to shift your attention now to feeling the movement of the breath around your ribs. And notice for yourself if you have a sense of expansion out and release back in, or if you feel more of a stretching up as the space between the ribs expand. You might feel that your spine is stretching higher also. And therefore, when you exhale, you feel that you're compressing back down. So that's more of a vertical sensation of the breath. Or you might feel that from bringing the attention to the ribs, you start also feeling the shoulders having their own movement through the lifting and relaxing, the inhale and the exhale, as well as the movement of the shoulder blades softening back in toward each other, toward the spine at the end of the breath out, and progressively sliding out and away from each other as you inflate the breath into that space. Now feel the breath in the throat. And maybe notice that when you're breathing in, there's a sensation of freshness and coolness in the walls of your inner throat, versus feeling the breath out having quality of warmth. And then finally shift your attention. Doesn't mean you stop breathing from all the other areas that we already covered. They're all present. You're going into that deep, deep, full breath. But now you're connecting to the sensation of the breath at the very origin of the breath, where the air enters the nose and you feel that slight cool friction of the air through the inner walls of your nostrils, moving to the back of the nose to go down to the upper throat, like right behind the palate of the mouth. Cool air. And as you exhale, you feel the air moving from that palate, from the upper throat, up through the nostril passage, out through the nostrils, and that air also feels warmer. So now you realize that there's a calibration of temperature. It's kind of your AC, your own air conditioning system through the breathing. You're cooling the body as you inhale and you're releasing any extra heat on the exhale. Now releasing the awareness of the breath altogether to take one more journey into the body, travel in and feel overall how your body is feeling. You keep on breathing, you're just shifting your attention to another part of yourself. And let's rub the palms together, create a little, not only friction, energy between the hands, but a little bit of warmth. And when we're going to cup the hands over the eyes, relaxing the sensation of warmth spreading from your hands into the eyes, to the back of the eyes, and maybe past the eye onto your face, and maybe feeling as deep as relaxing the neck because you have this spreading of warmth from your hands throughout the head. Like a melting of butter in the sun. And when you're ready, gently release your hands back down as you start opening your eyes and coming back to your space, to the familiar objects around you. And hopefully feeling more refreshed and energized. And I'll come close to you so we can open microphones. You can open your cameras.